The Legions of Athena. Chapter 13. The opening ceremony had just ended with a spectacular display of fireworks. Night had set in, and the crowd had begun to pour out of the Colosseum. The mood was loud and festive as everyone exited the arena. Near the gates, an elf woman tried with all her might to calm her baby. The thunderous noises had scared the child, who was now crying as loud as her little lungs could. The mother was starting to feel embarrassed by this. The elves were a quiet race known for their logical thinking. They considered public display of emotions as rudeness, even if it was just a baby crying. Unruly children were frowned upon by the elf community, and their behavior reflected on the mothers. The other elves in the crowd had begun to glare at the child and her mother in an insulting manner. The mother began to move hastily through the crowd and accidentally bumped into two men, one of whom dropped the bag of salted poppy seeds he was munching on. He turned to face the lady and her crying infant. The elf started to apologize as one of the two men, an older, rather sickly-looking gentleman in a dark gray suit, looked at her with great annoyance. But luckily, the other man merely smiled and told her it was all right and pulled his friend away. But before he left, he snapped his fingers, and incredibly the baby fell fast asleep. Before the elf woman could say anything, they had already disappeared into the crowd. But even though the two men had escaped the lady's gaze, another pair of eyes still watched them. They belonged to a cloaked figure standing unseen in a nearby alley and soon receded into the shadows. Maximus and the others were still in the Colosseum. Hedger's complaints on the rather mundane food habits of the castle had not fallen on deaf ears, so Odysseus and Daedalus had arranged dinner for them at the suite instead. Maximus peered outside the window to see the arena nearly empty. Only the cleaning crew stayed behind, doing their duties and preparing the place for tomorrow's events. Events that he would be a part of. He gulped nervously as he gazed at the arena. Initially, after the clash with the Tyros, he'd been raring for a battle, but on the eve of the fight, he realized what a stupid and unnecessary endeavor he had taken up. Daedalus had explained the Owlet's tournament to him. It would be fought between the 8 Tyros and 8 outsiders, usually mercenaries, in a battle in which one fighter remained standing. Only this time it would be 7 Tyros and 9 outsiders instead. Although the battle was not to death, contestants had lost their lives in the past or been severely wounded. The Tyros did it for the glory alone, but if a mercenary won, they were rewarded richly instead. That being said, Daedalus had also mentioned that the reward had never been claimed since the beginning of the Owlet's tournament. Once dinner was served, everyone sat at the table. Marinated chicken steak with oyster sauce was served to everyone except for Mia on account for her being vegetarian. She was served a stew called ratatouille instead. The food looked and smelled divine, but Maximus just couldn't seem to find his appetite. "What's wrong, Maxie? Yeah, barely taking a bite," Rex inquired. Max looked up quickly. "Nothing. The food is great. Just not hungry, I guess." "Worried about tomorrow, Ten?" Odysseus asked, to which Max just gave a worried smile. "Relax, would you?" Hedger said. "You can beat them easy." "Although I've seen firsthand the great skill with which Maximus fights, I would not call the task ahead easy," Daedalus said. "He's right," Rex agreed. "Even though the 16 of you will enter the ring as individual fighters, make no mistake. The Tyros will act as team to take out the outsiders first, and only then will they turn against themselves, securing the glory of the country before their personal glory." "It's the smart thing to do," Mia chipped in. "It's what the tournament is for, really," Odysseus explained. "The Tyros have a lot of experience fighting as a team and against each other during training, and this is where they put that to the test. The other contestants are only added to make the event more unpredictable." These words were not helping Maximus. If anything, it made him feel worse. His chances of winning seemed less than zero, especially when he was just the equivalent of a prop in a play. "Maybe we should try some encouraging words, people," Hedger said, looking worriedly at Max. "I mean, look at it this way. At least you'll get a few strikes at Elisha and her goons. Plus, I heard there's a reward if you win." "What is the reward anyway?" Mia asked. 50,000 golden drachmas, Daedalus replied. There was a dead silence at these words. Maximus stared at the old inventor, not daring to believe he had heard that right. Hedger said, 50,000 gold pieces. Hedger said, flabbergasted. "Yes, drachmas is the actual name of the currency in all the Olympian countries you know. But yes, they are called pieces commonly, I suppose," Daedalus said. "Drachmas. Pieces. However you want to call them. The winner gets 50,000 of those?" Hedger asked incredulously, to which Daedalus nodded. The sprite then turned to Max, grabbed his face, and said, "Maxie, you gotta win." Odysseus said, smiling, "Win or lose, take it in good sport, Max. I'm sure you will do well. But please do not underestimate our Tyros, especially Elisha. Even without her mecha, she is a very capable warrior." It took a moment for Maximus to register what he had just heard. "Mecha? Is she part of the gatekeeper unit?" Rex asked. Odysseus nodded with a nervous smile and said, "I thought you knew. She was right beside me during the festival." "But that would mean the one who trained her was," Mia said. Except for Daedalus and Achilles, the rest of them looked at Odysseus, who said, "That's right. Elisha is the Tyro of the First Legion, and therefore personally trained in combat by me." Maximus felt as if an anvil had just been dropped into his stomach. She's your student? He said weakly. Great, he thought to himself, not only were there going to be people in the arena with a personal grudge against him, but their leader just happened to be trained by Odysseus. Odysseus realized that this revelation had really taken a toll on Maximus. Personally, he thought Elisha and the other tyros would wipe the floor with him, but he still felt sorry for the kid. Unlike Elisha, whose arrogance and overconfidence often annoyed even him, Maximus was a regular soldier. Even though Achilles had trained him, it was barely for 2 months. Elisha had been under his tutelage for over 3 years. He looked over at Achilles, who still hadn't said a single word. By the look of things, he wasn't planning to. The legendary swordsman seemed deaf to the entire conversation and was busy eating his steak. Odysseus knew that a couple of words from him might just improve Max's morale, so he said, "Achilles, perhaps you would like to weigh in your opinion." Achilles finally looked up from his plate and said, "Don't lose." This has been a chapter from Book 2 of the new World Odyssey Series, The Legions of Athena. Links to the books in the bio. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next chapter.